Good morning. We'll call this Tuesday, August 18th, meeting of the Sierra County Commission to order. Due to the national, state, and county COVID-19 declared emergency and public health order dated March 23rd, 2020, as well as subsequent executive orders limiting public gatherings in the state, this meeting is not physically open to the public. All members of the public will be able to watch and listen to the meeting via facebook.com/SE Emergency Services, facebook.com/Sierra County Sentinel.KCHS Radio, youtube.com/KCHS Radio, twitter.com/KCHS Radio, Dish Network 371, periscope.tv @KCHS Radio, and a new listing, twitch.tv/KCHS Radio. And finally, local radio KCHS 101.9. We're glad to have our audience out there in virtual land and appreciate it. One day we'll get back to having meetings regularly. Also, public comment can be emailed to bmiranda@sierraco.org or bswingle@sierraco.org, or can be mailed by U.S. Postal Mail to 855 Van Patten, Tierce, New Mexico 87901. But those comments need to be received no later than Monday, the day before the commission meeting. Ms. Clerk, would you do the roll call?
Commissioner Paxson?
Here.
Commissioner Day?
Here.
Commissioner Luna? Here. Also in attendance, County Manager Swingle and Attorney Dave Pato.
Attorney Pato, nice to have you with us. Would you lead us in the pledge this morning?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico as the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Thank you, Dave. We have a couple of guests here with us, our undersheriff and a deputy. So glad you guys are with us. We feel extra protected today. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Commissioner Day moves to approve the agenda as presented.
Commissioner Luna seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Have we had a chance to look at the minutes?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Day moves to approve the minutes from the regular meeting and special meeting.
Commissioner Luna seconds.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We have one public comment. This is from Eunice Farmalant. I hope I didn't ruin that last name. I am a homeowner in the town of Array where I have a parcel of land slightly under 1 acre. I moved here last August of 2019. I had no idea that open burning was such a common occurrence. People frequently burn at night and during the day when it's very hot. High 90s to 100 or more burning continue. According to the Sheriff's Department, there is no limit on burning. Permits are issued to anyone and people often keep piles of material smoldering for hours unattended and without a nearby hose or buckets of water. In the 21st century, when much attention has been placed on keeping the low carbon profile, the practice of open burning, unrestricted by volume or length of burn time, flies in the face of modern and logical attempts to control air pollution. Smoke contains particulate. It does not remain on someone's property, but migrates everywhere. Not only does it make the air stink, but it's also unhealthy. In the summer, when swamp coolers are in operation, the polluted air is drawn into homes where the indoor air is poisoned. At present, the Air Quality Control Board, operating under the EPA, has has a set of regulations put into effect in 2004. They state that open burning should not be conducted closer than 300 feet to an occupied residence. And residents should consider other alternatives to burning, such as vegetative waste, composting, or taking the waste to a transfer station first. In fact, they state if the individual is closer than 10 miles to a waste facility, burning would be prohibited. In Sierra County, there appears to be no extended period of burning being banned. This creates a constant amount of particulate during the hottest weather. It creates a health hazard for both elderly and young children. I strongly suggest the commissioners review and revise open burning regulations, at least bringing them up to date with current attitudes about carbon regulation. If the commissioners fail to adequately address these issues, I will organize and present a petition to the voters of Sierra County because their health should be a priority. When there is so much focus on preventing the transmission of viruses, air pollution should not take a back seat because it is much more deadly and lethal to those impaired by lung or breathing issues. Thank you for your time. I trust these issues will be taken into consideration as soon as possible because breathing is a necessity, not an option. Eunice Farmland. We have a consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Luna moves to approve all items as presented on the consent agenda.
Commissioner Day seconds.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Presentations and reports. County Manager Swingle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I handed out a report before the meeting started of some of the department reports and activities. I'll start with the administration. First of all, staff in the admin office are working with the auditors. The audit process is well underway. We provide thousands of pages of documents from HR, payroll, finance, treasurer's office, procurement, as well as documents from my office as well. That's moving along very nicely, and we should meet our state's required timelines for completion of the audit. As you know, Serena Bartu resigned her position to homeschool her children. With all the uncertainty with schools and education, she chose to stay at home and homeschool her kids. I can't tell you what a huge loss it is to lose Serena. We'll replace the position, no doubt, but we'll never replace Serena. Just a huge loss. I mean, she was our right arm in this office. She was our colleague. She a friend. She was the whole 9 yards, and we'll dearly miss her. Wish her nothing but the best on her future endeavors. The 2020 census, as of last week, the door knockers, the numerators have arrived in Sierra County. Many of them are from Sierra County and TRC, and they are going door to door to all the addresses that have not responded. As of last week, late last week, our response rate was 35.9%. The state's is not a lot higher than that. I think we rank 50th or 51st in responding to the census state U.S.-wide. So New Mexico as a whole, I think a lot of it is dealing with the lockdown circumstances that we have related to COVID. We had about $28,000 in funding, in grant funding that we received dedicated for the census. We've expensed approximately $22,000 of that, and as of July 31st, August 1st, we have about $6,100 remaining, and that money's going surely to market, promote the census to individuals via newspaper and radio ads to get their participation in the census.
Manager Swingle, is there any talk about extending the October 1st deadline for the census?
No, they had extended it to October 31st, and they drew that back to the end of September now. So they've actually cut a month, which they added several months because of COVID. This would all be done in July, normally. However, they extended it because of COVID, and they've actually removed 1 month from the timeframe that they had allowed us. On behalf of the community, the business community, we submitted a CARES small business application, a grant application for $500,000. I don't need to tell you, we have a lot of grants that we're working on, and we are really at our maximum capacity of being able to manage grants. But this is one of those grants that the commission, the county, realizes is important to the business community. So we submitted the application. We're willing to do, the work that needs to be done to execute it. We should find out probably within the next week whether we're going to be successful or not in receiving the grant, as well as how much we're going to get. We received, or we requested $500,000, so hopefully we'll get the entire amount, but it'll be somewhere between $200,000 and $500,000, I'm sure. With that application, we also submitted an application for our cost related to COVID. And we submitted a request for $150,000, which is our expenses to date for COVID. That's not projecting out what our expenses are going to be in another month, 2 months, 3 months, but we weren't allowed to do that. What are our expenses today? So we have submitted that. I gave you a kind of a flow chart. This is, if we're successful in receiving the funding, the flow chart basically articulates the process that we'll follow to, we streamlined it as much as possible to make it very advantageous for the business owner as well as for the county in going through this process, meeting all the requirements that the business owner has to have. When we looked at some of the applications that were out there, they were asking a lot of additional questions and information, making the businesses provide that. It wasn't necessary, it wasn't required by the grant application and the grant criteria, so we removed it. It's bare minimum what is needed to qualify a business for the funding. So you look at it, the process looks kind of complicated in a flow chart, however, it's very simplified as you go through it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Manager, so you say county staff,
Yes.
do you have like a extra slew of them to help
No,
with this, or who do you have in mind?
That's going to be one of those other duties as assigned, Mr. Chair, Commissioners.
Are they drawing
for
straws,
for
or?
staff member. I've already got somebody identified, they don't know it yet,
Okay.
but
I figured you did, I just was,
I don't want to scare them until we actually have secured the funding.
okay, perfect.
But
won't scare
we
them.
made it easy on them as well.
We made a flow chart for them.
That's correct. You recall we had the flooding at the fairgrounds and really the entire southern part of Tier C and Williamsburg got hammered pretty hard. I can't thank the road department, Billy and his crews, Ernie and his crew were getting out there immediately, and started mitigating the problem so additional damage and harm wasn't done to our buildings. They did fantastic work. If you get a chance, you see any of them, please, acknowledge their efforts. They're out there all hours of the day and night accomplishing the work to improve the facility. Since then, we brought in Mooring. It's a construction and restoration company, and they've had as many as 40 people, 26 to 40 people working boots on the ground on the property, cleaning, decontaminating, doing a true environmental cleanup, removing sheetrock, testing different materials for asbestos, checking for mold, checking for other contaminants in the space, sending that off to the lab, restoring it, and they're going to be done here pretty quick. We wanted to definitely be done before the fair and have the fairgrounds in order. And frankly, I think it's going to be better than it's looked in years with the effort that they're doing out there. Kudos to the New Mexico Association of the New Mexico Counties. The adjusters have worked with us They've been, just on top of it. Yeah, they felt the need, they understood the significance of this damage. We initially wanted to bring in a contractor from Sierra County to do this work. And they said, we'll allow you to do that. However, when you get into the environmental testing and things like that, there's only really one company that we have faith in. And they're out of Dallas, the company that's used. And they go to disasters all over the world and do the cleanup and the restoration in an environmentally approved way. So I wish we would have been able to keep the money locally and keep our companies busy and active. However, under these circumstances, we had to go with the recommendation of our insurance company. Staff has been working with the architect and Smithco for the restoration of the remodeling of the Amen building. And they've met with all the departments. I've got a meeting today at 3 o'clock to go over everything that's been discussed, what's been prepared. We're going to do that final look-see at all the information, and then they're going to put that into the 3D format that we'll be able to actually do a virtual tour of the building through their technology. Recently, staff and Commissioner Day went out to Array, and we met with the community concerning the funding that we have available to do the Array field, the complex out there. And we had a very nice turnout of residents from Array and very interested in the project. I think they're probably more motivated now than they were initially in wanting to get this done. They had a lot of ideas, a lot of drawings and diagrams and input on what they would like to see. And based on the funding, I think that we're going to be able to accomplish pretty much everything they want, and possibly put some added things to it as well. Very satisfied with that meeting. We just completed the insurance surveys, which is a huge deal for a governmental entity. The surveys include workers' comp, multi-line, law enforcement, property, employment, bonds, crime, environmental, and cyber security. And we have to put together a lot of information for the insurance companies to come up with rates and the policy for next year. So we've completed that. I've received no response from in counties that we needed to provide additional information. So I'm pretty happy that we're through that process. It takes a full 30 days, and it takes a lot of people within the county to accomplish that for them. The master flood drainage plan, we just received notification from Wilson Engineering. They're about 80% complete with the plan, so they're certainly on time and on schedule, if not just a little bit ahead of schedule. We'll have that for you in the next couple of months, the entire plan for your review and adoption at some point. And of course, we've been involved in emergency management, working with our emergency manager in the COVID response. Emergency management continues to give daily updates to the community, keeping them informed of what's happening with respect to COVID, all of the programs that are available through one entity or another, one governmental entity or another. That information is being shared with the community. Thus far, the county has provided our local healthcare providers over 70,000 pieces of personal protective equipment with respect to COVID. Been a major undertaking, and Paul's just done a super job with that project. Facility management has been doing a lot of the cleaning of buildings, decontamination, COVID cleaning, particularly in the common areas. With the recent rain that we've had, a lot of weed control. Again, during the flooding, they were out there for the first 3 days. From the time of the flooding, for the first 3 days, they're out there trying to mitigate the problem to the extent they could. They also found some of the damage in the clerk's office and the sheriff's office, and they're working with with mooring to address those problems. And Ernie is our contact with mooring. Flood control, flood's been pretty busy. Working with Sierra Soil, provided some drone photos of the NIMS fire. conducted drone operations for the flooding incident, got some very nice aerials, and gave us a real good view of what happened. In hindsight, you can go back and look at
Who helped us with the drones?
Travis, the flood director.
Okay.
Uses the
He's
drone.
got one. Yeah.
Uses a drone extensively for flood work. However, there are special projects that he does for us. I know he's assisted the sheriff's department, he's assisted emergency management, and other entities, the drone. He was also very engaged in the flood and looking at drainages and things like that. Looking at some of the dams with the state, with the Army Corps of Engineers, and New Mexico Homeland Security. A lot of people were involved in that. Emergency management was also involved in that. He's assisted a homeowner on Eldridge Road and on a private levee washout. He's issued a couple of stop work orders in the county for not having floodplain permits. And I know that he's completed 6 permits, 3 in Tier C and 3 in the county for floodplain approval. And with misdemeanor compliance, as you know, George underwent a surgery recently, so he's still out. And Billy is taking his son to Wisconsin for his college. So
On
they're
a
both
track
out.
scholarship.
That's right.
Yeah.
And SCRTA, just an update, they're fully staffed, and they have a meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. at the 100 North Day Street property. So stand for any questions if you may have.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman, I just noticed that it's trending that we never have anything from the assessor, the treasurer, or the clerk on these.
Correct.
Is there a reason why they don't contribute?
We send out the notice for them to, if they want to report anything, to submit it, and we would communicate it to the commission. They just haven't.
Okay. Then, Mr. Chairman, maybe it's appropriate after we're done with Bruce that the clerk give the update on the information that was printed in the newspaper regarding the absentee requests and the election stuff, since it wasn't submitted.
Okay.
No questions.
Shelley, would you like to tell us what's happening with voting?
Sure. So, a couple of applications have been sent out from a third-party vendor. The Secretary of State tried to stop that, was unsuccessful. They said, no, we're sending them out. They only sent them to 935 people in Sierra County. So some people got them and some people did not. Well, in the last 2 days, the Republican Party has also sent out applications to voters. I don't know if it's only to the Republican voters. I don't know if it's to, we've just been receiving them and we were never notified. So if the voters want to vote absentee, they may return those applications. If they did not receive an application and they would like to vote absentee, they need to call our office and request an application, or starting September 15th, they can go online and request an application. The ballots will not be mailed out until October 6th. The clerks in the state were given the choice to have applications sent out to every voter. Our county chose to run our election like a regular election. Every polling place will be open. Every early and absentee will be done in our office starting October 6th. And if anybody has any questions, they're always free to call our office.
So if an individual asks for an absentee ballot and then decides to vote in person after they've received the absentee ballot, will they be allowed to vote in person?
No,
So if they-
because first of all, the system won't let them, because it shows that they've already been issued a ballot, and we're not going to issue them another ballot, not knowing if they're You can only be issued one ballot,
That's what you do.
is the short answer.
No, Mr. Chairman, on that, if they request absentee ballot, they get it. They can turn it in to a polling place the day of the election, correct?
Absolutely. As long as it's before 7 p.m.
Mr. Chairman, 2 more things. You said all of the polling places will be open, but we still are not having voting at the Albert J. Lyon, and wasn't there one other place that we?
So we closed Caballo and the
Right.
Albert Lyon for the
Okay.
primary, but all our polling places will be open for the general.
So they will be open? for
They
the
will be
general.
open.
Okay, and then secondly, there was some talk about trying to get you guys to be able to open and verify the signatures on those absentee ballots as they are returned. So what is on record of file when they sign their election card, registered voting card, that will that be allowed, or you guys won't be able to verify those ballots until the night of the election?
So they're putting it on the clerks as those ballots come in. They're setting it up in the ballot on demand systems where we accept those ballots to look at the signature, to compare the signature.
Okay. So you guys will be able to verify that that is the same
Yes.
person who submits it as the signature on the registration card?
Yes.
Okay.
The absentee envelope that's coming back to us is going to look different. It's only gonna require the signature and the last 4 digits of the social security number. It's not the year of birth anymore.
Okay.
It's to safeguard because some people may know the year somebody was born, so they can sign it and put the year, but they don't know that personal identifier of the last 4 digits of their social.
And if those last 4 are not included?
It's rejected.
Okay. All right. See, we had more questions for you than we did Bruce.
Anything else?
That answers my questions, thank you.
Do you have any report?
I wasn't even ready. I was so intrigued. I wanted to thank Billy, Ernie, and their crews, as well as Maureen, for getting on the fairgrounds. I think it has truly made Sierra County shine. Our property is clean and back in running and functioning order, minus the kitchens. And I think it just shows what pride our government entity has in our property and within our whole county. I know that the city baseball fields were completely devastated and they're working on it, but I thought it was interesting as I drove to the fair barn last week, the streets are still, were still covered in dirt, and the fairgrounds property was shining probably brighter than it has shown in a long time. So it was very nice, and I thank everybody who had a part in that. I know there were a lot of volunteers who went and got Mr. Montoya's property out of the fairground parking lot, and I believe Ernie is also still continuing to work with getting some of those pins that the fair uses either rebuilt or refunded or some kind of way to get that done. And the fair board is looking at possibly trying to get the metal piping painted before the company puts up the chain link fence again, so it can just be that much more crisp when it is reopened for fair.
Good.
I did speak to the Lieutenant Governor yesterday. He called to verify that we had everything we needed for our fair with the public health order that was updated, allowing fairs within the guidelines. And it does look like those will continue to be in place after the August 31st health order expires. It looks like those guidelines will still remain in place for the September and October health orders, despite what other changes might be. So we will be able to, the kids will be able to show their fair animals locally. It will be a show and go if no other changes are happen between now and then. But that was a very good thing for all of Sierra County. And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. I'm glad we're gonna have a fair.
Well, it might not be, we might not have indoor exhibits, but we'll still, at least the kids will get to show.
Yeah, that's important.
Well, I did have one on the flood, but it stole mine.
I'm so sorry.
No, again, just echo and thank Paul. Paul really stepped up during the flood, so the Trump Sent Well, our road crew, facilities. I received a number of phone calls that next day after the flood thanking our road department for going out and fixing roads along the county. So I just want to echo Commissioner Luna's comments.
Well, I do think we have a very dedicated staff in there to be highly commended, and I really think it's important that Manager Swingle said if you see any of them, let them know, so we'll do that. But those folks out in virtual land, just know that your county is working hard, and this was an unusual event, not unique. We can go back to 2013, and back in the 70s, we have floods in this area. There will be another, but hopefully we'll be drainage-wise a little better prepared the next time, and I know that Flood Manager Atwell and our EMO, Paul Tooley, are working to see what we can get done in cooperation with the city to stop the overland flow of intense thunderstorms that deliver us 5 inches in an hour and a half. That was a unique event. So I don't have anything else, but thanks to all our county employees for working hard. We're to the Board of Finance. We have a resolution to transfer PILT funds. Manager Swingle, you want to inform us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Yes, what the Treasurer would like to do is transfer the PILT funds into the construction, the new building construction fund, taking it out of the 401, move it into the 506 fund. So it's staff recommendation to support the Treasurer on this effort.
Is there a motion?
Commissioner Day moves to approve the resolution as presented.
Commissioner Luna seconds.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We've been forgetting roll call. I guess we better do roll call. This is a resolution.
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Luna,
Yes.
Motion passes. We have no old business, so we'll go to new business. The capital asset inventory certification. Manager Swingle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. As part of our annual audit, we have to certify that our capital assets inventory is intact and accurate. Each department certifies the information for their specific department, and ultimately the Commissioners need to certify the entire process. So it's staff's recommendation that you certify the inventory.
Is there a motion to such?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Luna moves that we certify the inventory.
Commissioner Day seconds.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Luna,
Yes.
Motion passes. Take-home vehicle request for Deputy Kurt Fulkerson, Sheriff Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This is a requirement that the county has prior to the Sheriff's Office issuing a vehicle to its deputies. I'd also like to, if you indulge me just for a minute, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce Deputy Fulkerson to the Commission this morning. I ask the Under Sheriff if you could please bring him with him this morning to just kind of get some face time with the Commission. Deputy Fulkerson was hired on 3 weeks ago. I think it's about his third week now. Again, he comes to us from the Texas area, and we promised we wouldn't hold that against him. He's assimilating well into New Mexico culture, and again, we're happy to have him, and we believe he's going to be a valued asset to Sierra County's resources and to their pool of fine employees. So back on the take-home vehicle, again, this is a requirement that by policy is required before we can issue a vehicle to Deputy Fulkerson.
Mr. I move to approve the take-home vehicle request.
Commissioner Luna seconds.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Luna,
Yes.
Deputy Fulkerson, you can drive now. Welcome to Sierra County and to the Sheriff's Office. We're glad to have you.
And we may hold Texas against you.
There's a Texan here, so we're okay.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, indulge me for just a minute on
Okay.
this matter. The county's policy right now is that the commission have to approve all take-home vehicles. And normally, that's a good process. However, in the sheriff's office with the deputies, they're all going to get that car.
Yeah.
Is that a process we can modify the policy? They still have to fill out the form, they still have to get a copy of the policy of what our requirements are. But we not take it to the commission and take up commission time and public business, just an idea. If you see these too often, we can streamline the process by still requiring everyone else to come before the commission, but the sheriff's department, you're going to approve their car.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the reason we do this is a previous sheriff allowed the deputies to park the units outside of Sierra County because the deputies were not residing in Sierra County, and so those cars were not even being kept in Sierra County when they were not being utilized. And in a few short months, which I'm sad to think about, I won't be here, but until then, I'm more comfortable with us approving them. I don't think that our current sheriff would allow that, but the next one might not think the same that this one does, because the last one didn't. So there's a historical reason why we do what we do,
Okay.
I guess, and you two
Well,
were
and
here at
I
that time.
guess we don't see them all that often. I mean, that took, what, 2 minutes?
Right.
So I'm fine just looking at them and just approving them like we do now.
Sheriff, you okay with that?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Manager, I mean, it's, half a dozen, 6 of the other. Commissioner, to Commissioner Luna's point there, we did have issues, and that was actually why this came to fruition. I believe, again, it's been a rather fluid process, but I can't say that I've had one rejected as of yet. I mean, I would still, even if the commission were to entertain not bringing it before the commission, I would still probably make sure that there was documentation. We had to fill that form out to ensure, first and foremost, that the vehicle was actually going to remain, or if the individual had an address outside of Sierra County, that there would be provisions in place that vehicle would not leave Sierra County, except for official business purposes. But again, I think there's always room to streamline the process. But I'm good with it one way.
At this point, we agree, and we'll continue as is. But it is nice to see Under Sheriff Dave and a new deputy here. I don't know that you will be exposed to the commission much, Deputy Fulkerson, but we appreciate you being here. It's always good to see Dave. And we'll continue on to the next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I guess a segue into this next item. Deputy Fulkerson is a new hire, and there was a reason why we had to go out for those positions. Around the end of May, beginning of June, as the Commission's aware, the Sheriff's Office took a pretty hard hit with our staffing. We had lost 2 earlier in May, and then we had lost 3 around the June time. Three certified deputies. There's costs that are associated to the training and the equipping and getting these individuals through the law enforcement academy. So anytime that I lose it, or the county loses something that we've invested so much time and effort in, we have to stop and take pause as to why this is happening. In 2018, the county commissioned a company in which to do a pay comparison. In 2018, we actually had realized that the Sheriff's Office was way behind, the Sierra County Sheriff's Office was behind the curve in a lot of areas. Specifically up here around our current rate of pay for an uncertified starting deputy. We had looked at that number and said we probably want to readdress that soon. And if you also remember in 2018 during the legislative session, that's when the legislators got together and started talking about a $15 an hour minimum wage pay, a minimum wage increase in the state of New Mexico. Currently, we are with that being our starting pay currently, that we're competing with places like McDonald's and Walmart. So it's when we're able to get someone highly motivated and highly qualified like Deputy Fulkerson, it's a rarity. We've had these postings running in the newspaper and throughout the county now for about 2.5 months, and have essentially garnered 4 applications for those positions. As you know, law enforcement here recently with the events in Missouri have also taken a hit publicly, just with our public image. Even though we can't say that we're having those issues here in Sierra County or with hardly any of the agencies here in New Mexico, sometimes your national opinion of law enforcement starts becoming the prevailing issue that we have to overcome, especially when it pertains to recruiting some of those qualified candidates. But in the 2018 study, we also determined that even our certified pay at $16.44 an hour then, it actually bumped that up to $17.11 after this pay study came into play. And we pretty much remained stagnant there for about 18 months. Since that time, many of our agencies, sister agencies that we compete with for employees and for our staffing, have got anywhere from a 4 to a 12% increase in their pay. And so, coming into this budget cycle prior to COVID, of course, I'd sat down with my staff and we were in the process of putting a pay chart together, a new pay plan together with the county to present during the budget talks. Again, that didn't take place. COVID hit, and so we didn't have the opportunity to really sit down and discuss those with the county manager and also the board. So the letter that came from DFA was essentially that the recommendation was to take the budget from last year that was approved and carry it over for the departments. We didn't have a problem with that. So we sat down with the commission. We took some cuts to the budget in the areas where we could take some cuts because of some other financial obligations with the county. And then when the final budget was put in play, then that's what we had to work with. So in 2019-2020, my lieutenant and the investigator, McWhorter, at my request, had contacted all of our local agencies or neighboring agencies that we compete with. So the only one right now, oops, you didn't tell me about the other switch, Paul. This one here is that the TRC Police Department has been updated for the 2020 budget cycle. The rest of them, essentially you have to add their percentage. This is from 2019-2020 budget year. So if you see their percentage down on the end of whatever their cost of living is, you can add that to those entities. And really, Sierra County has a hard time competing with all of these other agencies. TRC Police Department is who we lose our people to historically, or the state police, and we're never going to be able to compete with the state police. We've actually had the opportunity to pull employees from the state parks to come over to the sheriff's office. So really what we're struggling with at this point with our current pay plan is what the Truth and Consequences Police Department is paying their folks. I'll admit, and I'm not going to try to hide the fact that Truth and Consequences has a funding source. Truth and Consequences passed a local tax that they're able to bring in some additional funds in which to cover their pay raises. But as I tell my folks in the meetings that we've had, that's going to max out at one day. That's only going to pull in as much as it pulls in. And they're going to deplete that fund in short order. And when they deplete that, then they're not going to be walking away from us or running away from us as they have here in just the past 2 years. So again, the disparity between bringing a certified officer on at $21.08 an hour versus the sheriff's office current certified rate of $17.11. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to attract certified officers. And what I've encountered was losing one of my 5-year deputies, again, an experienced officer, to the police department that transferred over there, mainly because he and his wife had their second child, and that 2108 made a big difference in his take-home pay. So when the budget was given to us this year, we had the opportunity to look at what was budgeted and work within that budget. We are prepared at this point to reduce our staffing by 1 position. And we're proposing moving the salaries up for all of the positions to the proposed pay chart here.
Mr. Chairman, if I may interrupt. This sheet that is in our new packet is not the same as the pay plan that was sent over last week to the manager, is that correct? In the pay comparison that you sent, those numbers are now different from today's proposal and
So-
presentation?
No, well, actually, the pay plan that we sent, that we talked to Mr. Swingle about, he went and he produced this form, or this pay scale, and sent it to me,
Okay, correct.
and asked if these were the numbers that we were proposing. Ours were a cent or two across the board different.
That's fine. I'm speaking specifically to the comparison sheet that was sent over, the then and the now and then, the now and proposed.
Mr. Chairman, if I can I look at that,
Go ahead.
Commissioner?
This sheet is different than the information here. Sorry, I was trying to move them closer
So-
together.
So no, this sheet here is in
Slide.
conjunction with what Mr. Swingle sent to me on the pay scale. This is what we had discussed in moving everything up to the 1966 by you, but again, this wasn't the official pay sheet that was used. This actually came from the pay study that came out in 2018.
Okay,
Sir, can you go to that slide, actually?
the comparison.
Well,
This one?
no, keep going, towards the,
This one. So these numbers here are in lockstep with the pay scale that Manager Swingle sent to me after our discussion.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Manager, did you do this then? Where did this come from? I spent an entire weekend doing all my mathematical equations on this sheet, and now this is not what this says.
It is, they're supposed to be the same
They are not.
with each employee's seniority, with their experience. If you just take one,
We'll start at the very top of that comparison sheet. The proposed salary is $68,535, and on this sheet, it's $62,483. Then the next, the SRO goes from $44,830 to $41,704. The deputy position goes from, I don't know which deputy, but none of it doesn't matter. The only one that's, the SRO position, that's the $44,830, goes to $41,704. Then all the other deputies go from $47,585 and $43,960 to $44,262. So some of them go down $3,000 and some of them go up $500. So these numbers are not the same at all.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Luna, these numbers have been reworked once I received the pay scale from Manager Swingle.
So you readjusted them where you wanted them on your mid-max sheet?
They were readjusted when I received that from Manager Swingle
Okay.
after a conversation.
okay, so what he did is he gave me the salaries of what each employee should be at. We factored that into a step So let's say Josh Baker, I think the sheriff wanted his salary to be $25.15 or 20, whatever that number is.
It's 2669 now, and on this other one, it was going to be
$30.65.
3065, so he's down $4 an hour. That's
Yeah.
why I'm so confused.
So I apologize for that, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Luna. When we actually got back to the office and looked at when Mr. Swingle gave me the pay comparison, the only thing that needed adjustment from the one that he sent me was from the investigator to the sergeant. We then plugged everybody into that. There was a miscalculation on the 3064 that we actually took the lieutenant up higher than what he should have gone. So that's why we brought him back down to the 3004 when I caught that error.
Sheriff, this says 2669, is his current 3004, so okay, I see, you're taking
His
him
current is
down 61
2069,
cents an hour.
and with the new proposed pay plan, he will go to 3004 when you plug him into the proposal.
And
Okay,
he's,
and that's changed since I saw it, because what I have would be 3065, which is the number on the sheet that I got from you.
That's for step 6, though.
That's for step 6. Again, there was when I recalculated that, it was determined that was too high.
So
He actually-
he is actually in step 5, right?
That is correct.
So that 3065 would be in step 6.
I think what he had done initially, when we had plugged him into there, we had actually looked at his anniversary date. He was promoted to lieutenant, and has only been the lieutenant for 5 years of my term. So that's why we plugged him into that at step 5 as opposed to the higher scale.
Are there any other employees that changed?
I believe everybody, well, again, on the initial figures that we discussed there was 1 or 2 cents difference between my figures and your figures. But everyone else stayed in predominantly the same category.
So I guess, sorry, Mr. Chair, when it goes like, should we be looking at these numbers?
These are the actual numbers.
Or what's in our packets? 'Cause I guess that's what's not,
What I provided you here
is the numbers are,
are the numbers
Proposing.
that is what I'm proposing today.
So this
none of
is,
these numbers match.
this changed.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am?
given the fact that we were given numbers that don't match the numbers we were given today, I'd like to make a motion to table this so we can look at this and maybe hold a special meeting and a workshop just pertaining to this. I will sidestep, well, I'll withdraw my motion. My concern is the sheriff was exempt from meetings due to the COVID regulations. I mean, all of that was exempt. He could have met with those deputies. We had budget hearings. We didn't hear anything about a budget plan, proposed pay increase until after we submitted our budgets, and now here we are. If we give the sheriff's deputies, who are very deserving of a raise, it's not gonna stop there. We're gonna have every other department head be submitting those requests. I think the day after the agenda item came out, we already saw a request from the Flood Commission. So I think we need to look at this across the board and get everyone's proposals in, because we held up the building project to see what our gross receipts numbers were, because we went and we asked every single department to cut and to make sacrifices. And now we're going to get requests from every single department to increase their pay, because every one of our county employees deserve better pay. Not just our sheriff's deputies, especially our sheriff's deputies. But I don't see how we can hold up projects, ask for sacrifices, and then after we submit our budget, go and do this. I'm not comfortable with that, seeing as our duty is to be fiscally responsible for our constituents.
Commissioner Luna, 2 months ago, the sheriff and I met, and he was seeking my input on any pay raise adjustments for his deputies. And I advised the sheriff at that time that there was no more money in our budget. That was why we went through that excruciating process to cut funds from every single department. And I advised the sheriff that if he could work inside his budget and not ask for extra dollars, that the commission would consider his proposal. That was done in good faith on both sides. Sheriff, are you asking for any extra money in your budget from what was approved for this fiscal year?
Mr. Chairman, no, I'm not. I've taken the numbers that have been awarded the sheriff's office this year in our budget and working with those. Specifically with eliminating a position within the department, there's a large portion of that funding for this proposal that is coming from that position. If I may, Mr. Chairman, I would like to read an email that I received from the county manager on May 13th, 2020. It says, "Senior staff, due to the epic drop in oil prices and impact of COVID-19, the county expects a tremendous loss in general fund revenue for the foreseeable future. For this reason, we need to cut our general fund to the extent possible. Experts are suggesting a 20% loss in revenue, and we intend to cut travel and training expenses, including lodging, per diem conference, travel, training, and registration fees. If you have an absolute need for funds in any of these line items, please let me know as soon as possible. We will use the current budget numbers for next year. In addition, please review your current budget and tell me what other cuts can be made prior to your fiscal 2021 budget." That was the message that all senior staff and all elected officials got from the county manager, was that they would be using the numbers from 1920 budget year. That's what we did. We took our 1920 budget numbers, we sat down with the commission, and we made cuts to that. Once this budget was presented to me on July 2nd, these are the numbers that we worked with in order to come up with this proposal. I'm not asking the county for additional funds. I'm not asking other departments to have to cut any more of their funds in order to fund these pay increases. I'm working within what the county gave me to work with this year.
So, Mr. Chair, on that, so you're cutting a position to work within your budget. What would that do as a workload for the deputies cutting that position? Because I mean, over the past few years, we all want to be fully staffed, fully certified. That's the goal. Is it going to put too much work on the rest of your deputies that are working if you cut that one position?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Day, we are currently operating 5 positions down. In a word note, it's not going to have the impact that we currently have right now. And what we are currently running into right now is that we cannot even attract qualified candidates to fill the vacant positions that we have. A vacant position at the sheriff's office takes normally about 90 days to 4 months to fill, depending on the type of applicants we get, the screening process that we have to go through. But from day one, it's just a 90-day process before we even finish the testing, the selection, and then get that individual offered the conditional offer of employment that starts the real background check. There have been some that washed out then. There have been others that we've sent to the academy and washed out to the academy. So we've got a 1-year investment that we are putting into that employee. So the selection process really is, we can't just, I've told individuals before, I'll keep a position open for a year or better to get the right person in there, as opposed to hiring 12 different employees and they're only lasting a month at a time. It's always going to hurt when you lose people, because there's something that's going to be cut as a result of it. But I can tell you, running one position down for the next year or two until the county can recover some more funds and make them available to bring that position back, or whatever the case may be, is going to be a lot easier to absorb than continuing to run the deficient numbers that we're running right now. I've had to move everyone on 12-hour shifts, which then bumps me right up against that how much time I can work that individual. You come to the end of a 12-hour shift, and then get called to a CSP case or something, it takes another 8 to 10 hours before you can even send that officer home. That's just an officer safety issue. I can't run the number, I cannot continue to run with the numbers down that I'm running. And the only way that I'm going to be able to attract qualified candidates is that we've got to be comparable. We've got to be able to compete with our sister agencies. Again, this is still going to put us $1 or more behind even our To the Consequences Police Department. But we're at least going to be able to see the taillights on the horizon. And we've got to do something to shorten that gap between.
Well, and again, Sheriff, we've had this conversation, we're never gonna compete with Tier CPD.
No,
They
sir.
have funding sources, we don't, I mean, that's just plain and simple. So, the commission, hypothetically, the commission gives you this pay proposal, the plan. Eventually, with the 2% COLAs, there's gonna have to be a line item increase and a budget increase for the sheriff's department. So what happens at that point? So 5 years down the road, we continue to give these 2% COLAs to follow this pay plan. We're gonna have to give you more money. And so I guess what happens, I mean, I guess the commission's just gonna have to deny that at that point, once we max out your budget. Are you kind of follow what I'm saying? So eventually, I mean, 2% every year, say 5 years down the road, that's a 10% increase. Our budget potentially cannot sustain that. And so, I mean, each year is these COLAs gonna come before the commission, before approval?
They always have.
Okay.
The last 2 years, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, the last couple of years, we've included the 2% COLA in the budget, but that's communicated to the commission that that's been added. We did not add that this year because of the COVID and the revenue projections are so poorly expected. I'd just like to point out a couple of things with the increase. When you look at, it's not just the salary, it's the FICA, the Medicaid, the PERA, it's the insurance, it's the retiree health care insurance. When you factor all that in, the current position, you know, the lieutenant, let's say, that all fringes and benefits added to that, that's $91,000. Under the pay plan, that'll go to $106,000. Now, we'll have to tweak that a little bit because he's going back one step. And the increase from the current payroll plan to the proposed plan is $109,000. That's the increase. Not just the salary, but all other benefits and added costs that are associated with it. I'm sure that'll tweak down when we get and plug in the changes in the numbers. But it's going to be over it's going to be $100,000. That's the difference. One deputy does not equate to the $100,000.
How many deputies does?
2 deputies
Two
with the
deputies.
current salary is 87,000. I'm sorry, at the proposed, on their base salary. That goes to 157 with all the fringes. And Mr. Chairman, I think the thing that each of these deputies, I don't know if they're not getting it, I don't know if it's not being discussed, I don't know why. Every single time we have had this conversation in the 8 years I have been a commissioner, they see the dollar sign that the city pays, but they fail to look at the insurance cost. I understand it's up there. Seeing is obviously not believing because the city pays 80 and they pay 20%. And Sierra County pays 90% of that insurance cost and the employee pays 10%. I understand, and I have heard this from deputies themselves, that it is the dollars on the check and in their bank account at the end of the day that matters to them. When they need that insurance, it's going to matter to them because it's a different plan, it's a different payment, and it is more coming out of their check because they are now paying 20% instead of 10% of that cost. And that is a huge benefit that Sierra County pays. And I don't know why it's not being better promoted, not just to the deputies, but to all of our employees who are leaving. And to the point that 3 of the deputies, I believe, who left, they didn't go somewhere else and carry on a law enforcement career. They completely left the law enforcement field. Law enforcement is not sexy and glamorous in today's age like it used to be. I get that we are going to have to pay deputies and law enforcement officers more to stay in a world that is ever so dangerous. But they left the field. They didn't leave because another department was offering them more money. So we might be able to throw all the money we want to at this problem, and it's not going to fix it. As I sit here today, I am not comfortable approving pay raises and eliminating even vacant positions within the sheriff's department on a whim, because I guarantee you, and as I stood over there at Bruce's chair, there were employees over here nodding their head, yes, they were gonna be asking for more money for their employees too. I guarantee you, it will be department after department after department coming before this commission asking for the very same thing, right after we just got done saying, we had to live on last year's budget. We don't know what our gross receipts are gonna be. We don't know what our income's gonna be. We put a huge project on hold waiting for our income numbers. I don't sit here not in support of our law enforcement and not in support of them getting more money. But I sit here knowing we have to be fiscally responsible to our constituents. And I don't see how we can do both today.
Sheriff, I'm looking at something here that shocked me. What's a Catherine County certified officer starting pay? Down at the bottom.
$20.34 an hour. Now that was also 2019, 2020. You can actually add, let me see, I don't know if they have a form, Mr. Chairman. Catherine County does not get a cost of living increase, but they are currently budgeted, it appears, at $20.34 an hour.
That's surprising.
It's actually closer to 22 now, Sheriff.
22 now, Captain?
Close to 22, I believe.
Thank you. As I said, Mr. Chairman, just since we had put this together back at the beginning of 2019, 2020, due to commission meetings, due to legislative sessions, state police received, in just this time period, had received pay increases, state parks, many of the sheriff's offices, even Socorro County, who seems to be, according to this chart, lagging behind everyone except for Sierra County. 1818 had received over a 4% increase just since this went into effect. Again, Mr. Chairman, in the discussions I had with you, I promised that I would operate within the budget that was provided to me. We did factor in factor in FICA increase. We did factor in para-law enforcement increases. In my discussions with the county manager, we didn't actually go into retiree health care. I don't know that it works on a percentage or if that's just a set rate that all employees pay. But keep in mind, when we're doing away with that 13th deputy position, those are benefits that are budgeted and factored into that officer's pay as well. You go to the actual budget sheet. Just for the group insurance match alone, $225,100 that are in that. That's for 17 positions that I have at the sheriff's office. Just dividing that by 17 comes out to over $13,000 per individual. So there's another $13,000 in savings that by eliminating that 13th deputy position. Again, all of the numbers that were put together were worked with these increases and some of the surpluses that we would experience. The $692,000, again, that's a 5% decrease from what was budgeted last year. And yet we still turned in $50,000 in payroll dollars last year at the end of our budget cycle. Now I understand that you've got a budget for all of the positions But historically, we're never gonna run full staff. For just the amount of time it's gonna take me to even fill these positions, we're going to be experiencing that surplus. And will likely not even use, even with this pay scale, not even use all of the payroll dollars that have been assigned to us this year to use. Mr. Chairman, to Commissioner Day's point, yes, with a 2% increase, if we ever get to that point where we are fully staffed and we're able to run this thing out to its end, hopefully we won't have a North Date admin complex that we're having to renovate, and we're going to have some extra dollars that we can push into making sure that we're able to continue with these 2% increases. I know the 2% increase, again, every year has been if the monies are there, and it's never promised. But even bringing my deputies up to where they need to be right now, again, is going to definitely fix a hurt that we are experiencing at the sheriff's office.
So, Mr. Chair, sir, I just want to highlight one point that you made. You say that you're never going to fill those positions, so we're never going to have any issues with that. I'll be honest with you, and you know me, I'm a very straightforward person. I think that's a bad argument, just because the goal is to be fully staffed, fully certified.
Mr. Chairman,
And then, yeah, go ahead.
Commissioner Day, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way,
Okay.
that we were, what I'm saying is in the 6 years now that I've been Sierra County Sheriff, it seems like you get to that, right when you get to that full staff and you say, all right, we're humming along and we've finally done it, something inevitably winds up happening. I've never run at full staff for more than 2 or 3 months at a time. And it could have been, that's why we have the surplus that we turn in at the end of the year. We're going to budget, and again, responsible budgeting is that we're going to budget for all of those positions, filled or not. But to explain the reason that we turn the monies in at the end of the year and why there are surpluses that we wind up turning in out of payroll is because, again, it's just historically impossible to run, especially in the law enforcement field. It's 25 years that I've been there. The captain could probably attest to throughout his career with the state police, you're always losing somebody for one reason or the other. And again, I would much rather run one position down than to run 4 or 5 positions down, and that's really what it comes down to.
Well, I'll just be in an open book where I'm at on this. You know, when I first seen the sheriff, and you and I have had this conversation, I was a strict no, just by looking at the percentage raises. And you know, after numerous discussions and really looking at the numbers, you do fall. Well, let me step back. It initially looked like you fell within budget, with a deletion of 1 position. After conversation today, now it's 2 positions would fit within budget, 1 wouldn't, and so that's where I think and then the numbers changed. I felt comfortable last night. I mean, you and I talked about just let's approve this. It falls within budget. It's a net neutral expense with the deletion of the 1 position. You know, but if it's now we're hearing 2 positions is going to be needed to fall within budget, I think there's still some more number crunching that needs to be done. And it's one. I mean, I don't think if we're falling within budget, it's still being fiscally responsible. We're not asking, the sheriff's not coming and asking for us for more money, and if we do decide as a commission to pass this, I'll be honest with you, at the end of the year, if you need money, I'll be a strict no. I mean, we gave you the budget to fall within, but I actually really like Commissioner Luna's initial motion, if you want to bring that up, just because, I mean, now we're hearing 2 positions covers the cost. Again, not saying no, I just think there's some clarity in the numbers that need to be worked out. And I honestly just made that decision just sitting here just now. So that's where I stand. I don't know where you are, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I think in these current times, law enforcement is a very difficult position. I was a policeman in college, and it was the Norman Rockwell era. The kid at the soda shop that ran away from home, and the officer bought him an ice cream. It was a wonderful place to be. And I think that law enforcement is a honorable profession that, as in all groups, there's an occasional bad apple. The stellar performance of most of our law enforcement officers just match our efforts in rehabbing Albert Lyon and the Fair Barn. Dedicated people that do their job. It concerns me highly that TRC is that step above the county. It also concerns me that the county in these agency pay and benefits comparison, Catherine County is 2034. That is just astounding. Most of their budget is made up of PILT and a little bit of taxes. I would hope that we could seek resolve so that we can attract officers, bring them here, pay them appropriately, and keep them for a longer term than you've been having to deal with. That is my desire. I told you 2 months ago, there is no extra money. You got to play within your budget. And I think that that's critical. If our facts and figures don't match, then perhaps Vice Chair Day and Commissioner Luna are appropriate in that. But I want brand new deputy. We fully support our law enforcement. Want you to be paid so you'll stay here. That's our desire. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
yes, ma'am, Commissioner Luna.
I sat on the city commission when that tax was enacted. And the reason we did that was because the city police department was losing officers to the sheriff's department. So it's completely ironic that one of my last meetings, sitting as a county commissioner, I'm dealing with the problem on the flip side of this. And I'm proud that we have a problem that we are losing deputies within Sierra County, between TRC and Sierra County. They're not going somewhere else because this is their home. But we need to remember, as both governmental entities, we are here to serve and protect all of our residents, and we need to maybe work together that the pay stays the same so they can be happy with whatever department they want and under whatever leadership they have, instead of flip-flopping back and forth for pennies. And then we have training and reuniforming and all of those costs that go along with it. But I'm going to make the motion that we have a special workshop to discuss this plan, and that our manager asks for every other department the pay raises they want to see too, because it's coming. And I personally don't want this every month with another department and another department. And I think that it's a terrible problem that the sheriff's department has, that we're going to have a couple of vacancies. And so he can forgive a couple of positions and work within the budget. Not every department has that luxury. And we shouldn't expect that every other department bear the workload among their other employees so that they can also give their employees pay raises, because we gave the sheriff the pay raises that he requested. So I ask that those department heads and other elected officials look specifically at the workload that can be bared if they're going to do, if they're not going to fill positions as they become vacant or whatever they're going to do, because I guarantee you it's coming down the pipe. We've already seen it from the Flood Commissioner's office. So my motion is that we table this. We have a workshop for this plan as well as all other departments.
If I can just say something, again, for me, Sheriff, I mean, I just want to make sure we're falling within the budget, because after the discussion today, I'm gonna have, I don't know, for the one position, two position, that stuff are, I think for me to be lined out. I'm not saying no to this by any means. I just, those numbers need to be clearly lined out and presented to us. So it's a reluctant, but I'll second that.
Before we vote, I think any examination, and I would offer an amendment or a clarification, any examination by the other departments and the other elected officials has got to be to stay within their budget. There are no extra dollars. We can't make money Only the federal government can do that, and they don't share that with us. So if I can amend that they're gonna have to, each department is gonna have to stay within their budget in their examination of pay raises. Would you accept that?
So amended.
We have a motion and a second. A roll call, please, to table the issue for a workshop, and the county manager is gonna have to do a little bit more work, so roll call.
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Luna,
Yes. Good luck to those department heads.
Change that you made.
Do we need to take about a 5-minute break?
Mr. Chairman, I think we can knock out the rest of these things pretty quickly.
Can we?
And as we're on the radio and on Facebook,
Okay.
it creates a little bit of a problem.
I also see that we have Captain Allgaier with us. Did you want to address the commission, sir?
I'm here for you guys if you have any questions, concerns, or comments that you want to address. I stand for any questions you guys have.
Well, that's a good-looking face, man.
Thank you, sir.
We're always proud to have you with us. Do you have questions, Commissioner?
No, thank you very much for attending.
I will add one thing is just, I've really tried since taking over the command of District 11 to ensure that our officers are getting a lot more involved with projects and stuff. And I'll be upfront with all you guys, the sheriff and everybody. Sometimes I do feel that we struggle as far as Sierra County goes, getting notice of certain things happening and getting us involved. So for everybody that can get us more involved and help us with certain things, and we're willing to help with things, it's just, I also got to communicate with 2 other counties as well. So sometimes it doesn't hurt for a phone call just to tell us what's going on.
You do get notices of the commission meeting, though, don't you?
No, sir, I just look up those myself.
Okay. We'll see if we can amend that so you get notice and agenda.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Manager Swingle, TUC, that happens to Captain Allgaier. Well, thank you for coming today and sitting with us. These are tough times, aren't they?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You bet.
Thank you always, Captain.
Yes, ma'am.
So we'll go to contracts, agreements, and procurements. Manager Swingle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. First contract you have is the first amendment to contract with Olive Tree. It's between the county and Olive Tree. It's a first amendment to the biz contract. It's stipulating that the contractor will be paid $45,600 in full payment for the services that they perform, and there's a breakdown of those expenses.
So initially, when we did this agreement, Virginia didn't notice that it was 30,000, but it's the 45,000, I believe. So it's just amending the language to give the correct numbers that they were going to be paying Olive Tree out of this grant. This is the several grants that we have been dealing with for this program. So they've been tweaked out for the same document, and it was missed, so we're correcting it.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Luna makes a motion, we approve the first amendment and hopefully the last to biz.
Commissioner Day
It's a
seconds.
different contract.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Luna,
Yes.
Go ahead.
So this is the second amendment on the IDP contract. So when all this first started, it all started under Apple Tree, and then when the contracts for the grant started, they developed the Olive Tree. So now we're cleaning up all the Apple Tree stuff into Olive Tree, and then the IDP grant changes to another name, and the co-op grant changes to another name. So we're just updating the names that they're giving the grants. And we didn't know that at the time, but now we're correcting it as we move forward. So that's just another change in the grant that we're doing for the IDP. So it's COAP, Comprehensive Opioid Abuse Program, and COSA, Comprehensive opioid and substance abuse program. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Luna makes a motion, we approve the second amendment to that contract.
Thank you.
Commissioner Day seconds.
Hopefully next year we can have the titles correct.
Moved and seconded, roll call.
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Luna,
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Amendment number 1, the Triadic Payroll Services.
So initially, we had the payroll company that was doing payroll for the county, and we had the issues we had with that are in the corrective state now. But now that Serena's not in HR, and typically Triadic is the one that handles all the GL numbers, and they have the capability of handling payroll. And I personally reached out to the county manager because I didn't want, because people are here to get paid, not to just hang out. So I wanted to make sure that there's not gonna be an issue in payroll. And since Triadic has the capability and the know-how and the numbers and everything we need, we moved forward with an amendment to ensure that there won't be an interruption and we can move forward without having it in HR as per the auditor's request, and to keep the services going and employees get paid.
Commissioner Day moves to approve the amendment.
Commissioner Luna seconds.
Moved and seconded, roll call.
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Luna,
Yes.
Thank you.
The amendment passes. The intergovernmental agreement between New Mexico Economic Development Department and Sierra County. Manager Swain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This is some fantastic news. This is the intergovernmental agreement with NMEDD and the county. It's one of the required documents for the $500,000 LEDA appropriation from the state to AeroVironment. The county will serve as the fiscal agent, and it is a reimbursable, so that they'll expense the money at AeroVironment, then we will pay the expenses, and be reimbursed from state economic development. This is one of several documents that you'll be approving today, or considering for approval today.
Mr. Chairman, if I might add, they'll get the money contingent upon their creation of certain positions with the county. So if they meet certain benchmarks, they'll get that money that's been appropriated by the state.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Day moves to approve the agreement.
Commissioner Luna seconds.
Moved and seconded, roll call.
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Luna,
Yes.
Motion passes. The project participation agreement. Manager Swain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This is another document that's required for the LEDA funds. This is for the project, the specific project that AeroVironment is fulfilling out at the spaceport for the $500,000 in LEDA funds that they'll receive from the state. The objective of the agreement is to create and support economic development projects that foster, promote, and enhances local economic development efforts. So it's staff's recommendation that the commission will approve this agreement. And again, as Dave mentioned, based on the timeline of how they create jobs, that's how the funding will be distributed.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Day moves to approve the agreement.
Commissioner Luna seconds.
Moved and seconded, roll call.
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Luna,
Yes.
The motion passes. We'll go to resolutions, ordinances, and proclamations. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first ordinance that we would like to discuss is ordinance 20-004. This is an ordinance approving the AeroVironment Inc. proposal for an economic development project. What we're asking for you today is authorization to post this ordinance and have you consider approving the ordinance next month.
Attorney Peto, if you have this on your screen, after the final whereas, it says now therefore it be it ordered the Doña County Board of County Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to mention
It's
that.
been corrected.
Incorrect.
The manager and I visited, this was a form of ordinance that was provided by the Economic Development Department, and, yeah, we missed that in our preliminary reviews of that, so we did correct that for the meeting
Okay.
today. Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Day moves to approve.
Commissioner Luna seconds.
Moved and seconded. Roll call?
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Luna,
Yes.
This is a good catch.
Yep, and the motion passes. Correct. Resolution 109-013, Manager Swingle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I don't know that I've ever been contacted as much on a resolution as I have been on this one. One, members of the community would like to change the name, and these are people that are in the industry, would like to change the name of the title from the Film Advisory Board to Film, Media, and Music Advisory Board. They cover the full gamut of what that industry really is reflective of. It creates an advisory board that will recommend policy to the commission as well as infrastructure improvements to promote this community in the film, media, and music industries. It also calls for the appointment of a film liaison, which you've had for at least 28 years. So you would be making the appointment of the liaison and then setting up the process for soliciting invitations of people that are interested in serving on the advisory board. I talked to many of these folks and asked them, what's a number? How many board members should we have? You typically don't create a board and not have a number. And I said, this is very unique, it's very different. The state has like 40 members. Santa Fe and City of Santa Fe, County of Santa Fe have between 20 and 28 members that serve in this role. So they recommended that we not have a number on there and let the business kind of take care of itself. So you have the resolution, the roles of the liaison and the advisory board members are very different. The liaison is actually when a movie industry is looking, a movie company is looking at filming here, they want one person to contact. They contact them about how to set up, where to set up. They need a caterer. This person gives them the names of caterers. They need a street closed. They work with the city, the county, whomever is appropriate to get that road closed. The board will do very different things. They'll promote the community into the film industry to get films, music, media done here. So I thought when I first read this that it was probably kind of just amending what the film liaison person would do and distribute some of those duties to the board. It doesn't do that in any way. They're very different tasks and functions.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I had requested that we create this resolution and create the board so we could get some more filming and movement within Sierra County. Carrizozo, I believe, was home of 3 films within the last 12 months simply because of the work that their board and liaison were committed to. And I think that that would be a huge economic driver within our community if we could do the same. So it is with great honor that I make a motion we approve the resolution establishing the Film, Media, and Music Advisory Board. I would also, in that same motion, like to appoint Jagger as the liaison and then ask that we request resumes or applications for the remaining of those board members in the next 30 days for approval at our next meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call?
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Luna,
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we go into executive session pursuant to section 1015 E through H to discuss pending and threatened litigation, personnel, and real estate as listed on the agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded. We will go into executive session and be back.
Roll call vote.
Roll call?
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Luna,
Yes.
We are in
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we come out of executive session and the only items discussed were those listed on the agenda and no action was taken.
Second.
Moved and seconded, roll call please.
Commissioner Paxson?
Yes.
Commissioner Day?
Yes.
Commissioner Luna?
Yes.
Motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
And we are adjourned.